Hi everyone. So welcome to Image Graphics Wednesday webinar. So on behalf of Image Graphics, once again I welcome you all for this presentation on this CADWorx Plant Professional on a topic of efficient component placement. Now in this, the agenda for today is the various methods to place components in CADWorx Plant Professional, and also options under the component placement where the various methods or the options to place the component in a pipe, and following that modifying the placed component location. So once the component is placed, so how to modify that to change to a different location by defining a distance, and also following to that custom component. So now if you are making any custom component, so now how to place that custom component with the options what we have in the component placement methods. By the way, I'm Visakan from Image Graphics Engineering Services Private Limited. So working as technical manager. Now here I'm going to show you further on this presentation on this or the webinar on the component placement methods in CADWorx Plant Professional. Further to that, when you're going for placing a component in CADWorx Plant Professional, basically there are two methods available. So the first method one, which I have shown here in this slide or in your screen, where when you're going for placing a component, just you're going to select the pipe, and once the pipe is selected, you will find three icons, which is showing like a plus symbol on the pipe, one on one end of the pipe and other one on the other end of the pipe. One is in the exact middle of the length of the pipe. Now this icons will be shown only when the pipe is having the free ends, that is when no component is connected on either end of the pipe. Now when the plus symbol is showing, at that time if you go for click on the plus symbol, at once you will get the list, and from the list you can choose the component which you want to place on your pipe. Then you can choose a location for the same. Now, if you take the other way, if the pipe is having the some connections, maybe an elbow or some other joints in any one of the end or both the ends, then you can see only one plus symbol in the middle of the length of the pipe, because this pipe has the connections in both the ends. So that is why you'll get this. So you'll have two different behaviors in this. Now, once if you click on the plus icon, then as I told you, then you will get the list. From that list, you can choose which item you want to place. And similarly, the method two is using the spec viewer. The spec viewer is available in your ribbon under that tab named CADWorx 1, CADWorx Plant 1. And under this CADWorx Plant 1, you will find one icon named as SPC. So SPC is for your spec view. Now, if you see next to the right hand side of this method to what I have mentioned, there you will find an image which shows the spec view, where you can go for scroll up and down to choose which component you want to place on the screen. Now, moving further to this, here I have listed the options which is available to insert your component or maybe the component placement. Now on the image what I have shown here, you see it is showing the list, and below that we have the options like point distance, component distance, which I have marked with the blue colored rectangle, or the highlighting that with the blue colored rectangle. So this point distance or the component distance or maybe the pipe end distance and also the insertion justification. If you go for any of these options, where you can find one letter with capital marked, one is for point distance is marked with the T as capital, and similarly C for component distance, and vice versa for other two. Now this capital letter is going to be the keyboard shortcut for the options when you are going to use this in the command line. If you choose any of this by typing T, then you know that point distance will be a current option for placing this. If you're going for point distance, it is nothing but where you can specify a point on your pipe, and from that point you can define the distance where you want to place your component. And the point which you are defining can be either on the pipe, where you can specify a point pipe using the nearest or any other snap option, or maybe the end of the pipe. From there you can specify a distance, or maybe even you can choose a component endpoint also. So now this option helps you to specify the distance exactly from a defined point. And similarly, if you go for this component distance, where you can choose the existing component on your pipe, that component may be an elbow, or maybe a bend, or maybe a valve which is placed on this, to choose to place this. And now under this component distance, the option which helps you to choose the distance with the help of the component which I told you. And once if you choose the component, then from the component endpoint, it will ask you what distance you want. Suppose, even though if you're going for the component distance point, I want my distance to be selected not from this endpoint. You want the distance to be taken either from the mid of the length of the component, or maybe the other end of the component. For example, if you take a valve, in the valve, if you want to place the component in from the either maybe the left hand side of the component, or maybe the right hand side of the component, in such scenario I can use the option insertion justification. If I go for toggle this insertion justification, where it will allow you to toggle for the points on the component, either to the right, and then to the center, and then to the left. So like that you can go for toggle between the points on the component or the justification. Then you can place your component with the defined or the desired value. And similarly, when you go for this placing a component, once if you click on the pipe for placing a component, after choosing by any of this method, either by click on the pipe and insertion, or maybe if you use your spec viewer for placing that, in such cases, once if you click on the pipe, at once you will find the distance of the component location will be taken from one end of the pipe. That depends on which side of the pipe you are clicking. Once the distance is showing, suppose I don't want the distance to be placed from this endpoint, I want the distance to be taken from the other endpoint. In such scenario, you can go for use your pipe endpoint distance option to toggle this to take the distance from either to the first end, maybe to the right end of the pipe to the component justification point, or maybe to the left end point to this. So like that, you can toggle between this for placing this one. Now, these are the four options what we have for placing your component on your pipe. Okay, but now you might have wondered that why I selected this topic for placing this, in this webinar. Now, in most of the places where I have visited, I have seen that users are using the standard options for placing the component, and many places users are not aware of this particular options in CADWorx. But if you see this option, these options are wonderful options in CADWorx, especially while going for placing the component, which helps you to save a lot of time of yours to increase your productivity in your project. And this time saving what you are making will help you to do or complete your job quicker in an effective manner. So that is the reason I have selected this topic for showing this on today's webinar. Now in the next slide, the same thing what I have discussed now, the point distance to specify or pick a point, reference point on a pipe or component to place the component on your, I mean the component which you want to place in your screen. That is the first option, that is the point distance. And the second one is the component distance, where you can choose a reference component, and from reference component you can go for define a distance that I want to place this component with so and so distance from this existing reference one, or the pipe endpoint distance, where it helps us to toggle from the one end of the pipe to the component, or maybe the other end, or maybe the right end, or maybe the left end, that you can toggle. And similarly, if you go for the insertion justification, which helps us to choose the insertion point of, or maybe the distance reference point of the component, either from the left hand side of the component, or maybe the right hand side of the component, or the center of the component. This options what we discussed now, I would like to show these options in the CADWorx screen, so which helps you to understand better. Now I'll go for this CADWorx screen here. Excuse me. Now in here you see I have taken the small model, a small piping model here. It's a very simple one, which helps you to show the, I mean helps me to show the topics which I'm discussing now. Now if you want to place any component on this, as I told you, I can click on this. Now you see this is the plus symbol which I told you about, where I can click on this plus symbol and then go for right click and choose the, either to get the list. If you click the list, I have the T's, wallets, stub, crosses, and so on, until valves we have. And you can choose any of this component from this list, and then you can go for insert this. Similarly, if I choose this pipe as my reference, now you see I can see the plus symbol on this here on one endpoint, which is a free end, and similarly in the middle of the length of the pipe. So these two things we have here. I can use any of this option or any of this plus symbols to place this. Similarly, when you're going for choosing your option, normally when you click on this end and if you say right click, you see I'm getting the option as list. Similarly, if I click on this pipe and click this and say right click, now you see I'm getting the options as component list. The difference between this is, since this is a free end, the options of bringing the component to that end is bit more. So that's the reason here we have the option as a component list, and here we have this as a list into this. Now click on this, now right click and go for choose a list, and here you see it is showing thing as elbow. I mean, sorry, the T is the option here. Now this T, I don't want this T as my standard one, which can be changed with any component which you want. Okay, so as a default one while going for inserting this. Now right click on this and choose from the list that the component which I want as my valve, and let me choose that as a gate valve. Now you see I can, I mean, go through the length of this pipe for placing this component. Now again, you see the value which is showing here is 829. That is a distance from this one end of this elbow to the end point of the valve, which I have selected now. Now this value I want to choose. Okay, now say for example, if I'm going for choosing my first option as point distance, right click and go for the point distance. And now I would like to take a distance of 200 from this endpoint of this pipe. For that, I'm going for using the from option of OSNAP. Go to from. Then let me take this as my endpoint, that is reference base point. And from here, I'm going to give my offset distance as at the rate of 200, 0. Now enter. Now you see this is my distance which I have taken. That is now my start point, or the distance calculation point is fixed at a distance of 200 from this endpoint. And from here, I would like to give a distance of 1000 and enter. Now this component is placed at a distance of 1200 from the endpoint of this valve, because I have taken the reference distance as 200, then I have defined the the component insertion location as 1000. So it is 1200 distance now. And also here you see while the component what I have placed is with the bolt and nut, which is showing here because I have enabled the convert enhanced option over here. And similarly, normally the pipe will be placed with as a solid pipe, but since I use the convert enhanced on the pipe, it is showing that pipe as hollow, which is very good or maybe nice for the presentation of it. Now this component is placed here now. Similarly, I'm just going for erasing this because I want to use this model for again for showing the next option. So click on this, go for the list and choose the same component. Okay, maybe valve. I'm choosing the option as valve because that will be easy for me to show you the options here. Okay, the what we are discussing about. Let's say I'm going for choosing the component distance. Choose the component distance, and then I can choose either this elbow as my reference component point. Now, once if I choose this elbow, now at once you see it is taking the distance from this elbow point. Or let me place this valve at a distance of, let's say 1500, and again I'm going for taking this list and one more component. Let me choose the component here as, let's say, the T what I have here, and from this I want to go for the component distance and choose this as a component reference here. Now you can see the distance is taken from this component to this one, and also it is possible for me to toggle, okay, with the point option to the location of this the reference what I have selected. Now I can toggle with this point, and then I can choose, okay, now since the dimension is not showing here properly because of the realistic mode what I have selected, if it is in the wireframe mode, then you can see the dimension clearly. Let me give this distance as 500, let's say. Now it is placed at distance of 500. Then you can follow the respective component behavior of insertion to place it. Okay. So like this, you can go for use your component distance for taking a reference from the point. Now, similarly, you can go for use the next option of this. So go for place this one. Let's say the option which I'm going for using this as the fourth one, that is the insertion justification. But with the help of insertion justification, you can see the justification points. So again, let me go for choose the option as valve. The reason why I'm choosing the valve is it will help you, I mean, to show you better the options which I told a bit earlier. Again, now go for this insertion justification. Now you see the distance is taken from one endpoint of this pipe to the one end of the valve. And again, if you go for justification, now you see it is going for the mid of the valve, mid of the length of the valve, and similarly the other end. Okay, so like this, I can go for use my insertion justification for toggle this. Okay, so where you want to place this. Let's say I want to take the distance to this endpoint, and the distance what I want to enter is, let's say, 700. Now you can see the valve is placed accordingly. Also, whenever you're going for placing a valve, obviously we need to place the other control also, which is here called as a TopWorks. I can go for TopWorks and select the valve component for placing the TopWorks. And here I'm choosing this as my TopWorks here, where I can go for choose the TopWorks direction and also the gear direction for this particular model of the TopWorks. Okay, so my TopWorks is placed here. You see this valve which is placed on the pipe. Now, similarly, if I'm going for placing the next component, let me remove this here. Okay, and remove this valve as well. And again, go for this and choose for placing this component from the list. Get valve here. And in this, you see that now the distance is taken from this one end to the valve. And similarly, if you want that to be toggled to the other end, so there you can go for use your pipe endpoint distance. So which is the third option. So you can go for this pipe end endpoint distance for toggle between this end to the other end. Okay, which helps you to place the distance exactly with the which pipe endpoint you want to consider. And also I can go for use the combination of this also. So where suppose if I'm going for the insertion justification, so where I'm going for choosing the insertion justification from this point. Okay, so now I can go for the point distance. Okay, again go for insertion justification, again point distance. Now you see I can use the combination of these two options or more than one option here to choose the exact location of the component where you want to place on your pipe. So I hope this helps you to place your component exactly on the location where you want. Maybe the people, those who know about this feature already might be enjoying with this one, and for whom it is new, I'm sure you'll be using this in your office, in your project, to do your work more effectively to save a lot of time of yours for the component placement. Now enter some distance as, let's say, 800 to place the location of it. Okay, now similarly, once a component is placed, now suppose if you want to change the location of this, in such scenario, just select the component and go for use this grip point. Now you see it is allowing you to do the location change. So this is the modification option of your component placement, where suppose if I go for this pipe endpoint reference, now you see I can change the pipe endpoint distance. Now I would like to show this the same in the wireframe mode, because the dimension and other things will be shown very clearly. Go for this component, select this and select this grip point. Now you see dimension showing us 1820. Now go for the pipe endpoint reference to toggle to the both sides, and also added to this I can go for the insertion justification also. But only difference is earlier it was showing as a point distance, or maybe the component distance, or the pipe endpoint distance, but now it is showing as a reference, point reference, component reference, or pipe endpoint reference. Because since we are going with the reference point here, it is the option is changed like that, but behavior of this is one and the same as the earlier one. Here you can define or enter a distance as, let's say, 1200 as a distance to place your component exactly on the location which you want. So this is the modification option of this. Along with this, now if you want to place a component using the second method, so which I told you as the spec view. So the spec view is, this is icon for your spec view. Once if you click on the spec view, you see you getting the spec view palette here on your screen, where I can browse through this, or I can go for scroll this to choose which option or which component you want to place here. Now I have a custom made or a user defined component here, which I have made as a ball valve, and this custom component which I would like to place on my component, and also I want to check the behavior of it, whether how it's going to place on your screen. Now go for this. Once if you want to place a component from your spec view, it is quite easy to place, because click on the component, then go for choose a point on this. Now let's say I want to take the nearest point of this to place this. And once a point is defined, then again I can go for use my same component distance, or maybe the pipe endpoint distance, or maybe the insertion justification, like this, for choosing the distance. And distance which I'd like to place is, let's say, 1050. And here I placed my component, and following that, based on the component behavior, you have to give the input for placing the component here. Right. So now this is placed, and for the custom component also, or user defined component also, once it is placed, it is possible for you to choose the modify option for modifying the current location. And you see the same options like point reference, component reference, pipe endpoint reference, and insertion justification for choosing your justification point. And also you can go for very well modify the input here, which I would like to give this as a 750 for my new location. And in spec viewer, while going for placing the component, you know that we need to choose the main and also the reduction size along with your specification. Then we can go for place your component. And added to this, I would like to give one more tip for this or in this session, that when you are using this pipe, and if you right click only in the spec view only on the pipe component, if you right click you can go for choose your butt weld router or socket weld router or maybe the threaded router for placing your, I mean, pipe, create your pipe on this. So this you can choose it very well for placing your component on this. Okay. So now, so far what we have seen is the options, that is the wonderful options of placing your component on a pipe. Okay, either by using the method one, that is click on the pipe and using click on the plus icon to place the component, or maybe use the spec viewer for bringing your component to place it on your pipe. So either one of the option you can choose this, and once if you select this to place, then you have the options of using this as point distance or maybe the component distance or point endpoint pipe endpoint distance, or maybe you can choose your the one more option of placing that as your justification, that is insertion justification. So any one of the option you can choose for placing this. I'm sure this will help you to save time in your project to complete your work very quickly and also in the effective manner with the precision of placing the component. Now I would like to go for the PowerPoint again. Now I would like to show you the summary of this, the component placement methods, what we have seen, the two methods, that is of the one with the through, I mean, click on the pipe and placing it, or maybe the spec viewer, and also the effective component placement methods with these four options, which I just told you about this, and also the custom component placement with the options. Once you're going for placing a component, custom component, mostly we will think whether this option will support our custom component or maybe the user shapes what we are making in CADWorx. Yes, now we are clear that it will support, the user shapes will support the options while placing the component in our CADWorx Plant Professional. So I'm sure you might have enjoyed the session on this placing the component, and also how to bring the component and how to use the spec viewer to place it. And also here I have used the convert enhanced option for showing your bolt in your valves, and or maybe normally when you're going for creating a pipe will be shown only as the solid pipe here. Now if you want to show the hollow pipes, if you use the convert enhanced option on your pipe component as well, then you can see your pipe as the hollow pipe into that. Fine. So now I'm sure this will be a really helpful for this. And now it's a time for question and answer session. And I hope you enjoyed this session. And also, I'd like to hear the questions from all the participants. And if you have questions, you can use the hand symbol for so raise your hands to ask the questions, or maybe you can use the chat area to chat the thing also. So now, once again, thank you for paying attention to this session and also your valuable questions. I thank you very much for giving us this opportunity and also for your participation on this webinar. And we look forward to see you in the further more webinars in this. Thank you very much, and thank you once again.